Welcome everyone to this Legion Patchnotes rundown, patch 9.01. It is the first bigger patch of the new season. I'm happy to present it to you to go through the latest changes and talk about my opinion on those. First of all, we can see that there's going to be a Nova Cup which is actually going to take part today and tomorrow. So as you see the video, make sure to join Twitch LTD2 to watch the Nova Cup. I think they mainly broadcast the first division, but overall there's 4 different divisions based on rating, so that a majority of all players could have the possibility to join such a cup. The next update that is actually kind of interesting and cool is that we have an update on the crab, which is the wave 1 unit. The crab has not, or any of the wave units have not changed since the very first release over 4 years ago. And this is quite cool to see. I think it's not necessary, but it's a nice little thing to have. I really think this looks kind of cute and cool at the same time. Really looking forward to see it. I think it's a nice little update. We have a new mystery card, Tommy is Sus. I'm looking forward to see what it's all about. And 2 new skins. First of all, we have the Twilight Drake. I think it looks really cool. It feels like the Drake's having a total different design, like a different model, which usually is not the case for the skins, but at least here it seems like this. Maybe it's just because I can't imagine the old Drake and the colors and match it with this one. But it looks really, really cool. The second skin is the Easter egg. In my opinion, not the coolest skin. I probably would not buy it if I would have the choice, but I'm kind of dedicated myself to buy all the skins. So I'm gonna do it anyway, but overall I think the other Hydra skin looks a lot cooler, but maybe your taste is different here. But now we want to jump to the game balance, which is my topic overall. Very, very quick about 4v4. We now start 2 workers again, but therefore the worker production or the Mythium production is decreased a bit. What will impact 2v2 ranked is gonna be those changes that follow now. First of all, we have Mastermind playstyles, Mastermind options, and we have some adjustments here. We have Cartel getting a little bit less of an income reduction in wave 10. I really like this. It's a very nice buff. I'm mainly playing Cartel myself. I think it is by far the most played of all options that I do, because I like to play aggressive early games. I like to make a difference in the early game myself. But I often see myself in a situation where I only am the same value than somebody who played, for example, Chaos with +6 income, compared to my status stem. So sometimes you just have this game where you can escalate freely because you get a lot of sense, you get a sense on the right wave, and you have the perfect units to match it. But then sometimes you have a more late game oriented role setup, and you can't scale that hard. So I think it's a nice buff, even though personally it felt already a very good mastermind option. One thing I'm curious about is the cash out. +2 gold on top. I personally think I played cash out once just to try it out. I'm overall not the biggest fan of it, because you would have to make up a lot of options to go for. So when you pick cash out, you basically want to have a 6 worker opener, because this is the only thing that's going to give you a benefit of having that much starting gold. Of course, you could build a tier 6 unit right away, for example LOD or a Avenger, but this is not really the sense of cash out, I think, because then you start with minor workers. What you want to do is push very aggressive to 6 workers, and therefore you would have to test out a lot of options. Mainly it's going to be Bone Crush, I think. Maybe a Gargoyle could help with some ads, but then you do get worker number 6 on wave 3. So I think overall there are options, but there would be a lot of time to invest, and this is just why I don't. But overall I think cash out did underperform for sure, so I really do like a buff here. Legion spells, investment is getting a nerf, which is super interesting, because I personally feel like investment is one of the worst spells for sure. investment is comparable to Castle. They both want to scale a lot, but the impact of investment just feels super slow. So I could imagine that investment is a perfect add to Castle, and then you get this nice plus 70 almost income on top on wave 10, which is quite a lot. But apart from this, I feel like I prefer spells that have a direct impact on the game, either by getting Mythium, by having a wave control somehow with like Venture, so you kind of force your opponents to send on a specific wave, or you just have some buffs with Magician, Sorcerer, Hero, and so on. So I personally feel like it's overall a weak spell, but I can imagine that the combo, especially with Castle, might be very strong. Loan, getting some income penalty reduction as well. I really do like it. I personally feel like Loan is a very weak spell because those minus 36 income have been just insane. It's not really a lot of options where you would take Loan. So at the very beginning of introducing Loan, I think it was minus 20 income if I remember right. And that was a common play to go Loan and push for workers, but with minus 36 income, this is not really worth it anymore, I think. So any game I took Loan, it's always going to be okay. I need to hold 11 or 12. I need to hold the next 10 to not die. This is like the only option at the moment I do take Loan. Or the only situation I will be in. Magician, getting a small buff, I think it's fine. Magician was not the greatest, especially because people kind of don't use it correctly. A lot of people use it on gates, for example, while the mana pool is just insane on gates. And other units like Avenger. So overall, I think there's a huge skill gap in using Magician wisely, but it is not the strongest spell on top of this. Pulverizer, though, is a very clutch spell, especially when it comes to later game waves. Just imagine you have one permastun unit on 18, 19, there's just a huge damage reduction. So I do see the attack speed bonus getting reduced, I think from 8 to 6%. This might be quite a lot. But overall, yeah, I think Pulverizer was on the strong side, for sure. Villain now giving half effect against bosses, which is perfectly described here. It was more or less a free hold with Villain on certain waves, especially on 20. If you had a half decent setup on 20 and you had Villain, you usually were able to hold the boss, which gave you an unfair advantage. Obviously, you're picking Villain in mind of this, but it was just a bit too strong against bosses. So I do really appreciate this change here to not make Villain that OP. It is still a very strong spell though. One thing I really would have not thought of is king changes. I really didn't think there's going to be some king changes like this. Overall, we have an attack speed increase, we have a projectile speed increase, and we have a damage reduction. All this will lead to the king more spelling and dealing a little bit less attack damage against bigger creeps, because on top the Giant Slayer, so the percentual damage is reduced. But you do have now the chance to go a bit more with your king spell, I think. So maybe now king spell is often a lot more worth it in terms of king spell or king attack upgrades. I'm really looking forward to play a bit more like this. So maybe now double king spell upgrade is more common in high elo, for example, instead of the double attack damage. I can't say yet, would have to test. On top of those changes in numbers, we also have some tweaks in the actual king spells. We have the immolation damage plus 3%. That's awesome. Immolation is an insane weak spell, especially in the early game. We have Judgment Lightning Hammer damage getting reduced, but now it obviously casts more often. So I think this is more or less equally good. We have the Chain Frost. Wait, maybe I say something on top of this. So yes, you do have the damage reduction, but the problem here will be the threshold between will it spell once more often and therefore kill the wave, or would you needed those extra 10% of damage twice and then hold? You know, I think this is gonna be the dilemma. This is gonna be the threshold whether the king is now stronger or weaker. Because if it's just getting the spell out twice, minus 10%, obviously a lot weaker. But then if it's just enough time to get a third spell out, you're dealing an insane extra amount of damage. So it will always be a matter of timing if the new king is gonna be stronger or weaker. We have the Chain Frost is getting a bit adjusted. The bounce did increase before in damage, but this is not the case anymore. But now it does have plus 5% early game damage, which is good, I think. Frost Chain was underperforming, same simulation, especially in the early game. So you really do like some tweaks here. And on top we have Chain Frost and Lightning Hammer. The bounce speed is a lot faster, so it's a lot likelier to clear a lot of units fast and survive you this way. Yeah, I think all it says here I explained already. I'm looking forward to test those changes. I'm kinda unsure yet how this is gonna impact the game. I would guess that you play a little bit more for King spell instead of King attack damage on certain waves, but this is just my guess right now. Coming to the fighters, we have Looter, we have DPS unchanged, we have less attack damage, but more attack speed. It's a 10 gold unit, right? This should not matter. Like, attack speed on a 10 gold unit should not matter, to be honest. I think just give it more attack damage because the Looter might get one attack out or two. That's it. I really don't think this is gonna matter a lot on Looter. I might be heavily wrong, but I think on this small unit with what does it have? 110 HP, it really doesn't matter. Where it does matter though is the pack rat. And we have some changes as well. The DPS is going down, the damage is going drastically down, but we do have some changes to the attack speed once again. And this is to make pack rat better on wave 2. So enabling some thresholds there. And pack rat actually does have a 55% win rate. I rate pack rat at the moment quite low because it is just underperforming in the early game, and later on you don't want it as a unit, but you only want it as a Mythium gathering machine. This is why I rate pack rat so low. Obviously Looter is insane. 10 gold for tier 1 is perfect. You can just spam it in certain waves, you can adjust your split, whatever. But overall the pack rat is just underperforming unless you get like a lot of Mythium out of it. And I think now, since it is going to be a little bit stronger in the early game, where it has to be strong to not underperform, I think it might climb a little bit in my rating. Oathbreaker getting some HP back. I didn't test if a snail is now a guaranteed hold. I hope so, because Oathbreaker, in my opinion, does have to hold the snail in wave 1. This is like the only strong wave the Oathbreaker has, or like the only perfect wave the Oathbreaker has till 9. And there you should get this little bit of a benefit. Harpy and Sky Queen getting some additional attack speed. This is still not gonna solve the problem that Sky Queen is not two-shotting wave 3, so you usually leak quite hard with the Sky Queen on wave 3, even though you save for workers, for example, against certain sends, for example a Brood. I think overall this is still a weak unit. Sky Queen is for sure one of the weakest units even, because you do have to adjust your build for it. Usually you build across the map like you would do with Boar. Sometimes you split, but I think depending on your role and your ads, if you don't have Steeds or Magician, it doesn't really matter, or it doesn't really make a lot of sense to split, because then you just gain a lot less attack speed. But apart from this, the Sky Queen has to be an early game unit to make it worth building for it. Because if you have a Sky Queen, you want to mainly add combo units, so Leviathan, APS, Dark Mages, stuff like this, and tanks. And if you want to build for the setup for a Sky Queen, either you start with a Sky Queen or you start with the tanks, but you cannot really start with another build, Aqua, whatever, Berserker, any other start, and then transform into it, because you kind of have to commit on the Sky Queen. So this is what doesn't work with the Sky Queen. It has to be an early option. You have to build it, or at least RPs, you have to build those units as early as possible to get into the build. So this is like the problem with Sky Queen not two-shotting with 3. It is way too weak to play. I think I cannot think about one game in high elo that was played by Sky Queens from an opponent. I think I tried them out once, but apart from this, nobody I can remember in the 130, 150 games I played this season of high elo plus all the games I've watched where somebody really tried to make Sky Queen work. I can't imagine that. The unit is just way too weak. Talking about weak units, Pyro, well, getting a lot of damage plus with the reduction of attack speed. Yes, this is good for the mole, finally. I mean, Pyro's just hard countered by Hermit and Mole early on, plus in the late game. So yeah, this is definitely the right change to do. We have some small attack speed nerfs on the Daphne, but therefore it is dealing more, or the passive of the Daphne is giving a higher amplification per stack on bosses. So overall, I think this is plus minus equal. It's gonna stay around the same, especially on 5. This is gonna be a lot better. This is making me wonder, because Graal minus 50 HP is a lot. You already leak quite a big amount if you have a Graal on 2 and don't add a tier 1. And now with 50 HP less, I think this is almost never a choice anymore to let your Graal stand alone on wave 2. To me, it feels an insane nerf. I think this is just a huge nerf, but maybe I'm wrong. But personally, I feel like this is a really hard cut. Therefore, King Claw is getting some buffs, a bit more attack speed. You really don't need attack speed on King Claw. It's a tank, and it has a passive like give it more HP or whatever. And the spell shock damage is increased. I think this is okay. But you do really not need an attack speed buff. Like, just give it those 50 HP you take from the Graal, and I think it's a lot better already. Ocean Templar, you know my opinion, I think, about the Ocean Templar if you watched recent patch notes. Ocean Templar is only good for 14 and 15 or for gates. It seems like they are aware of the fact, so giving it more attack damage and reducing the magic reduction damage. So shifting a little bit more power into the actual damage of the Ocean Templar. I don't really think this is gonna solve the issue. It's maybe even weakening it, because now it's less attractive to build the Ocean Templar for wave 14-15, and you do not build an Ocean Templar as a damage dealer. This is just not happening. So I think this is actually weakening the identity of the Ocean Templar even more. Elite and Trinity Archers, well, getting a small buff is fine, I think. They're just not commonly played because you have to commit on them, you have to build a lot of tanks if you have them, and in the best case you have APS with you. So I can see the reasoning behind the buff here, but I felt like they're a niche unit, but in this niche they are performing decent. One unit that was clearly overperforming was the Gatling Gun and the Vulcan Cannon. Probably at the moment the unit with the highest push potential pre-5. I can clearly see the reduction in attack speed. Personally, this might be a bit too much of a nerf, so I can imagine that this is now a lot less played. At least from my side, I feel like I'm not gonna play Vulcan Cannon or the Gatling Gun as often anymore as an opener, because you have the extra damage taken from last patch, and now you do have the attack speed cap that is a lot lower. So overall, quite hard nerfs in terms of HP and damage output. So yeah, overall it feels like a drastic nerf, but they're needed for sure. Gates, for sure one of the strongest late game combos you can have at the moment. What's going to happen to them? They have health and damage of the summons are reduced by quite a lot, by a real lot, but therefore they spawn a lot more. This is shifting the power a bit more away from those clutch holes in the middle towards just being around the same strength on lane, I would assume, but therefore being less being less OP in the middle ground, because now overall the value you get out of a gate is obviously a lot lower. If you have Ocean Templar though, you're definitely gonna make infinite value still, and Ocean Templar gates are still gonna be the most broken gate combo out there. On top of this, Summoners no longer degenerate HP, so this is a little buff to the now weakened middle ground holding from gates, because they don't lose the HP anymore. I think this is overall a fine solution. Maybe now you have to adjust Ocean Templar with gate combo, because if you have gates and something else, like meh, but if you have the Ocean Templar on top, gates are still gonna be like busted, so as they are now. The boar, okay, you know, it is one of my favorite units. I think it's busted, it's the most broken unit in the game. Why it is so broken? They have insane amounts of HP, they have AoE splash damage, plus they have attack speed reduction, which is especially strong in the late game. Guess what? One of those three is getting removed, of those three insane attributes. I think this is... Okay, I'm sad about it. I'm pretty sad about it. I would love to have the boar as it is now. But on the other hand, it is needed. Like, you do have to reduce the versatility of the red eyes of the boar to make it less of an OP unit in the late game. And I think that's happened. So what can I say? I'm sad inside, but overall this is a good change to competitive gameplay. Mercenaries, maybe I want to skip the Hermit real quick. We have Pack Leader now not double buffing the boss units anymore, or like the Scorpion King, the Octopus, and the Legion King, so all the boss units where there's a boss and a bit of mini bosses. Witch is now getting a nerf. I personally felt like Witch is in a definitely fine spot, even on the weaker side. Centaur getting a buff, that's nice. Centaur always feels like a good option, and then in the end is not a good option. Ghost Knight felt good already. I can see a small HP buff due to the increased damage it now gets from spells, and not from spells, from auto attacks. And we have a quite strong buff on the Kraken, which is at the moment I feel not that commonly sent. So usually a Kraken is not the go-to tank in a lot of situations, because Ghost Knight and Ram are just like having their identities. You send a Ghost Knight against impact, you send a Ram against pierce and against ranged units, and then you basically have only magic damage left, but there's not a lot of ways to build magic damage for in the late game, which would only be either 15 or 18, but on 15 and 18 you usually send Shaman. So the Kraken often is underperforming in terms of getting sent. I think the usage rate of a Kraken is quite low. Obviously it's the highest cost mercenary, but on top of this it's probably quite low because of Ghost Knight and Ram both being viable options, but really do like the buff on it. Now jumping back to the Hermit real quick, because I feel this is busted. It's getting plus 6 DPS, and Hermit already is a monster in the early game. Aqua Spirits, Violets, Masks, Trinity Archers, all those units are just getting wrecked by a Hermit already, and now it's getting plus 6 DPS. I think this is a... Oh, Flower, I've obviously forgot about Flower. Like 6 DPS is so much. I really think this is hella broken. This is way too much of a buff. I can see that you want to adjust some thresholds here maybe, plus you it does not longer double buff Scorpion King, Quadribus, and Legion Lord, but the only thing it would matter is the Scorpion King, because if you send a Hermit on those units, it almost doesn't matter. But if you send a Hermit on 5, this is already quite strong against certain builds, and now it deals an additional of 6 DPS. This is really insane. I think this is a drastic buff. It's a drastic overbuff, and I'm super afraid of early Hermit. This is not making fun at all. Like I'm pretty sure this Hermit is gonna kill a lot of builds, a lot of units that already aren't the best early on. Just think about Aquas and 8, right? Mole Hermit are already wrecking them, and you usually leak like 90% of the wave. And now with, with even more DPS on the Hermit, it's not getting easier for sure. Last but not least, we have some wave changes. Scorpion King, no longer a boss. We heard it in some changes before. It does have some changes. Hermit, Pack Leader, Daphne, Honeyflower, and so on, but we don't have to talk about those more. Small buff to 12, I think it's fine. Same for 13, I think. It's just meant to have games end on mid-game waves rather than on late-game waves, which is a little bit of a nerf to Castle, obviously, because there you want to scale quite long. 15, no longer a boss. We have a buff to 17. I really like this. 17 is underperforming, I think, because you do either have a swarm wave on 16 or you do have this very strong wave on 18, while on 17 usually your sens are getting sniped out due to the wave being flying. You do have the Leviathan that are especially sniping out those sens, and you do have some other builds, and especially the wars, which are just insane on the wave. So overall, 17 getting buffed is a very good thing here. 18 therefore getting a nerf, so shifting a little bit from the OP power from 18 to 17. This is just what I explained. And then you do have wave 21, the Legion Lord is not considered a boss anymore. This is the patch notes. It's quite long of a rundown. Once again, I had a lot to talk about. Let me know your opinion about the patch. I think overall a very good patch. I love the skins. Hermit seems hella off, but apart from this, the patch is very good. Looking forward to play it. See you another time. Bye bye.